The scorching heat of July in Mingzhou is like being in a steamer. The bustling gate of Pearl University, Chu Yun's gaze swirled, wiping his sweat, searching for the youthful shadow of his sister-in-law Su Xiaoxiao. He has been married to Su Minjiao for half a year, and the only person he can get in touch with the Su family is the sister-in-law who has shown strong hostility towards him since the first meeting. Searching under the scorching sun for nearly an hour, Chu Yun finally found Su Xiaoxiao in the crowd. Fashionable and cool long skirt, exquisite three-dimensional features, smooth ponytail, this young and beautiful girl stands out from the crowd. Even the two pretty girls around him are completely reduced to green leaves. Su Xiaoxiao, with a brilliant smile on his pretty face, froze the moment he saw Chu Yun. She stepped forward aggressively, her beautiful eyes widened, and she stared at Chu Yun. "Do you really have the face to come to me?" As if these words were not pleasant enough, she gritted her teeth again and said, "The day after you married my sister, you disappeared for half a year. Why didn't you die outside? Why did you come back?" Su Xiaoxiao scolded more and harder. It was obvious that compared with the hostility half a year ago, she now hates Chu Yun to the bone, wishing him to lie on the street. Speaking of this brother-in-law, even though Su Xiaoxiao racked his brains, he couldn't think of a shining point. It's delicious and lazy to make, without ambition, it's a total waste. Chu Yun knew that this little sister-in-law was a bucket, just 1 point. Don't argue with him either. "Xiao Xiao, I haven't seen you in half a year, you have become beautiful again." Chu Yun didn't feel stage fright because of Su Xiaoxiao's hatred of being mean, like a dead pig, he didn't even feel the water was hot. "You are getting more and more disgusting." Su Xiren has a sweet voice, but what she says is like a sharp knife. Today, she learned again what it means to be brazen. Despite his harsh words, he was indifferent and boasted that he was beautiful. What a disgusting waste! Even her classmates looked at Chu Yun's eyes very ambiguously. Of course, it's not the ambiguity of men and women, but the contemptuous playfulness. They had long heard Su Xiaoxiao mention this wretched brother-in-law, who had so many shortcomings as disabled. He was not worthy of being a man. Seeing the deity now, I believe that Su Xiaoxiao's evaluation is without any prejudice. Cheap shirts wet with sweat, whitewashed jeans, and leather shoes under my feet are even more old-fashioned. Mo said that Su Xiaoxiao's star-studded sister, even the most ordinary woman on the road, would not be attracted to such a shameless trash. "Little, I finally know why you get so angry every time you mention him." One of the female classmates who looked very proud teased. "If I were you, I would only do one thing in my life." After a pause, the proud girl said with the same enemy, "Take up this unfortunate marriage." Su Xiaoxiao frowned. "After all, this is a family affair, Chu Yun, this is no longer a man, but after all, it is her brother-in-law. If it weren't for being blocked at the school gate today, she would never hope that any classmates and friends would see this brother-in-law who humiliated the Su family. I really don't deserve Minjiao." Facing Su Xiaoxiao's insult, Chu Yun's wind was calm, and his dark eyes also looked lifeless. But his submissive appearance made Su Xiaoxiao even more annoyed. "It's useless, it doesn't even have a temper. It is true to say that he is not a man. You can tell me if you have something. I'm in a hurry." Su Xiaoxiao didn't want to get along with this desperate man for a second. At this moment, she seemed to be more on pins and needles than Chu Yun, who had been criticized and insulted. "Your sister deleted my phone number and changed my address. I can't contact her." Chu Yun seemed to be okay, and said calmly, "I want to see her and talk about something." "What are you talking about?" Su Xiaoxiao suddenly became alert. 6 months ago, the Su family was in financial crisis. The company's business plummeted. They slipped away on the second day of the wedding, escaping like a plague. Right now, my sister is successful in her career and is about to embark on a glorious path of fame and fortune. He suddenly appeared at this juncture. Su Xiao could think of the nausea and utility of his intentions with his toes. This wimp wants to come back to hold his thighs, and want to eat my sister's soft rice. Private affairs. Chu Yun's expression remained calm, even a little absent and unfocused. But in the eyes of Su Xiao, Chu Yun must be full of bad water, wondering how to take advantage of his sister, and return to the Su family to cheat money and deceive sex. What personal affairs do you and my sister have that I can't know? Su Xiao was angry. I am very upset about my sister's life. The impression of Chu Yun was even worse. She no longer cared about the presence of classmates, gritted her teeth and said, "Tell me, are you going to go back to Su's house to eat and drink, or ask my sister to spend money? Or you owe a debt and cannot pay it back? Want my sister to pay it back for you?" With Chu Yun's disappointing behavior, even if he did something shameless and disgusting, Su Xiao would not be surprised at all. Facing Su Xiaoxiu's soul whipping, who could not wait for the skin cramps, Chu Yun frowned slightly, raising his eyes to look at the beauty that was 6 to 7 points similar to his wife. Can't help but shook his head, a little ups and downs of mood, and soon calmed down. Is still a child after all, so why does he need general knowledge? If you find it troublesome, don't want to help. Chu Yun's thin lips opened slightly, his expression still indifferent. Can you give me your sister's current contact information? Don't give it to him. Before Su Xiao spoke, the arrogant girl said nonchalantly, "This bastard, it must be no good to find your sister. Borrowing money is considered small, maybe there is still annoying." After a pause, he said, "Little, let your sister divorce this bastard. Didn't you say that he was a soldier before? I have seen a lot of soldiers, most of them are brainwashed idiots." Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com has patriotic dedication in his mouth all day long. In fact, he smoked and drank in the barracks. After he came out, his temperament remained unchanged, and he felt uncomfortable if he didn't fight for a day. Look at him, he disappeared for half a year after he married your sister. Is the family dead or a comrade in arms dead in battle? Are you busy going to the funeral? Before absent-minded, Chu Yun, who was in a sluggish mental state, suddenly burst into a murderous air all over his body. Those grey eyes flashed with a cold color that Su Xiao had never seen before. In an instant, she actually smelled the smell of a beast from Chu Yun. It was so oppressive that it was suffocating. Click! Chu Yun, who was emotionally violent, lit a cigarette and moved skillfully, with the smoky smoke haunting his face, concealing the hideousness on his face. "This classmate, you say it's okay to me, no matter how vicious it is. But don't insult the soldiers." Spouted a puff of smoke, and on Chu Yun's ordinary face, there was still a surplus of anger. "You are not worthy." The proud girl's apricot eyes widened, and he didn't expect that this wimpy man would dare to fight back against him. Just about to say something to humiliate Chu Yun, the latter shook his head lightly. Xiao. You are right. I am talking to your sister, there is really no need to hide it from you. Originally, when I returned to Mingzhou this time, I was going to discuss divorce with your sister. But now, I regret it." Lifted his eyes, Chu Yun's eyes flashed with calm but indifferent eyes. "My poor husband, she has to take it if she doesn't want it. My trash brother-in-law, if you don't like it, it's your brother-in-law." Chapter 3 Do you support me? When Chu Yun entered Zhuzuo, Su Minjiao lived in a single-family villa. Today, she only owns a 3-bedroom house on the edge of the second ring road. He still owes nearly 5 million mortgages. In a hurry for half a year, Su's family is not a human being. The relationship between Chu Yun and Su Minjiao, which is already weak, is even more strange. It was late at night, plus the concern for her sister, Su Xiao decided to stay overnight. After returning home, my sister's attitude towards Chu Yun was really beyond Su Xiaoxiu's expectations. The Su family went through bankruptcy and debt collection in the past 6 months, and their parents almost provoke a lawsuit. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is falling into the abyss. In the past 6 months, my sister has carried it down by herself. But when my sister was the hardest and most desperate, the husband who was supposed to accompany her left and right, but there was no news. She is too calm. The calmness made Su Xiao very uncomfortable. If you make up for it tonight, can you redeem the cruel abandonment of the past 6 months? There is food in the refrigerator. Su Minjiahu's beautiful beauty is not happy or angry, and Gujing has no waves. The room you sleep in. Completed all the conversations after returning home concisely and clearly, which was very different from Su Xiaoxio's expectations. No class tomorrow. Su Minjiahu glanced at Su Xiaoxiao calmly. Su Xiaoxiao went back to the room wittily. Before the Su family went bankrupt, she was very afraid of Su Minjiahu. Now, it has escalated into awe and worship. Why enter the entertainment industry? Just when Su Minjiahu was about to return to the room to rest, Chu Yun spoke. He and Su Minjiahu don't get along much, and they haven't had so-called soul exchanges. But he knew that Su Minjiahu was an extremely conceited woman, and her personal education and comprehensive abilities were also much higher than ordinary people. What's wrong? Chu Yun's tone was quite machismo. You have to be a star. She is still plain, without emotion in her eyes. It's like an iceberg that will last forever, extremely cold. Su Xiaoxiao was surprised at her calm, but she scolded her angrily, far less powerful than indifferent ignorance. She didn't care about Chu Yun's stay at all, she calmly adapted to his presence or absence. This is Su Minjiahu's conceit and attitude. Do you think I am ashamed? Su Minjiahu said blankly. Chu Yun frowned slightly and shook his head. He has never thought about it this way, he just thinks that Su Minjiahu is not suitable for being a star artist. This will make her very hard. Is like tonight's event, which is normal in the entertainment industry. But it was a catastrophic challenge for her. I just hope you have a easier time. Chu Yun let out a sullen breath. Living in a Western-style building, riding in a luxury car, 10 fingers do not touch the Yang Chun Shui. Is that right? Su Minjiahu glanced at Chu Yun flatly, making a sound. You raise me. Chu Yun was stunned, his mouth a little bitter. But at this moment, the dignity of a man makes him reluctant to bow his head. He gritted his teeth and looked straight at Su Minjiahu. I raise it. 1 day? 1 week? 1 month? Su Minjiahu was explaining the facts, but Chu Yun's ears were very harsh. My life is a lifetime. Su Minjiahu has always cherished words like gold. Today, facing Chu Yun's sudden appearance, she has said too much for the first time. I'm tired. Su Minjiahu opened the door and ended the couple's first conversation 6 months later. Watching Su Minjiahu return to the room, Chu Yun sat down on the sofa. This house is the same as Su Minjiahu, which makes him feel strange. After experiencing the ravages of society, the house has become smaller. Su Minjiahu, who is arrogant and proud, also bowed her head to reality. Over the years, Chu Yun has lived in an environment that is crueler than reality, but not so realistic. He doesn't care about firewood, rice, oil, and salt, and he doesn't need to worry about what to eat tomorrow. His experience turned him into a devil and an idiot. Decided to return to Mingzi for a divorce, but it was only a matter of thought. Leaving or staying away can't change his terrible status quo at all. But at this moment, he doesn't want to leave. Because Su Minjiahu challenged him. When the Su family first showed malicious intent to him and ridiculed him, the woman never said a word. Tonight, her words that were less than 10% vicious in the Su family aroused Chu Yun's fighting spirit. Even his bad situation has been improved a little. His mood is not so lifeless. There is also a bright color in his eyes. To live like ordinary people, this may be the only medicine. When leaving the base, an old man said so. After taking a shower, Chu Yun threw the scarred body on the bed. I lit a cigarette and took out my phone. Little, brother-in-law is cool tonight. He sent a message and waited patiently. Ding dong. After a while, Su Xiao Xiao, who was still brainstorming, replied, "The courage of a man." Su Xiao Xiao is young and beautiful, and he is also lively. But in the face of this poorly impressed brother-in-law, it is difficult for her to play normal. Even if Chu Yun helped a lot tonight. But the effort is not worth it, she will definitely stand by her sister's side and continue to hate this irresponsible and useless brother-in-law. At least I'm a little more worried, isn't it? Frozen 3 feet is not a day's cold, and Chu Yun is not in a hurry, and continues to send messages. Xiao Xiao, brother-in-law has a gratuitous request, and I don't know if it should be said or not. Please tell me if you are unkind. So Xiao Xiao was lying on the bed, still tapping the screen. Chu Yun sent another message, with a smiling animated picture at the end. Sister, my brother-in-law is shy and wants to borrow $1,000 from you. Don't worry, it will definitely be paid at the end of the month. Su Xiao Xiao was furious on the spot. I just did something that is considered to be a responsibility, and it immediately became the original form? Even one borrowing is 8,000? Am I a rich woman? No. 3 to 5,000 are fine. No. There is always 1,000 or 800, right? Su Zioxio's face was green with anger. This product is really hard to move. The soft rice is here for my sister-in-law. Can't hold Chu Yun soft and hard, and Chu Yun really shocked her tonight. Borrowed 1,000 with heartache, hit the dog like a meat bun, hugged his head and went to sleep. No words for a night. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. When Chu Yun woke up, it was quite noisy outside. Listened, it turned out that it was his father-in-law and mother-in-law who had arrived. He quickly got up, cleaned up a bit, and opened the door. Just before leaving the house, he sent a message to Su Xiao Xiao very angrily. Don't you just borrow 1,000 yuan? As for alarming the elderly? We were on the United Front last night. Traitors. Went out, and the 4 elders sat on the sofa. Not only Chu Yun's father-in-law, but also Su Minjiahu's uncle and aunt. Seeing these 4 people, Chu Yun immediately became dizzy. The Su family's strongest firepower has been gathered this morning, which is desperate. Do you still have the face to come back? Before the parents-in-law spoke, Aunt Chen Ziyuling fired the shot directly. Same as half a year ago, she has always been an excellent gunner on the front line. The fighting power is overwhelming, and it is never too humiliated. The Su family can't afford to support idlers now. You can't carry it on your shoulders. Can you suffer? Don't be wronged and ask outsiders to cry and complain that we didn't take care of your Dortodo or son-in-law. Is really vicious. 6 months ago, he was confused and didn't realize it carefully. Now that I think about it a little bit, I can't help feeling that this Dortodo or son-in-law is really not a man. The family status is not as good as a dog. Chapter 4 Selling Wife. There is a metal crash in the kitchen, presumably the Su sisters are making breakfast. Chu Yun had no backing, so he could only bite the bullet and communicate. Auntie, I am embarrassed by what you said. Chu Yun and Yan Yu said with an expression. Oh, it's all about this. Are you just ashamed? Chen Ziyuling was surprised. If I were you, I would have dug a hole in it. Only the rat can burrow into the ground. Chu Yun whispered and said in a loud voice. I'm a man of 7 feet, and I still want a face. Chen Ziyuling was furious on the spot, her eyes widened. Have a face? Where did you die this 6 months? When the Su family was in distress, did you make a difference? Now that the Su family has just gone through the difficulties, you ran back to become a parasite? What a man, he can bend and stretch. Chu Yun felt aggrieved. He was humiliated by his sister-in-law last night and came back early in the morning. How do you live these days? Chen Ziyuling was unreasonable and unforgiving, the more she scolded, the more fierce. The voice is so loud that even the two sisters who hide quietly in the kitchen can hear them clearly. It's almost done. Mother-in-law Dong Yehua frowned slightly and put down the teacup. When she spoke, Chen Ziyuling was also very interesting. As the former head of the Sui family enterprise, Dong Yehua and Yu Wei are still there. Daughter's marriage, she was also the first to stand up against it. The intensity was so great that the marriage almost fell through. Since I'm back, Dong Yehua said indifferently when he raised his eyes and looked at the unpleasant son-in-law. Then divorce the marriage. As she said, she took out a document from her bag, and her thin lips opened slightly. Sign a word, you and the Sui family will have nothing to do with you anymore. With her move, let alone Chu Yun, even her father-in-law Su Zhenyi's was quite surprised. Are you ready for the divorce agreement? It's worthy of a doer, his actions are always sharp and fierce, and he doesn't procrastinate. Was stunned, Chu Yun tentatively said, Mom, can I take a look at this agreement? Dong Yehua nodded lightly. It was originally for you. In S eyes, it is meaningful. She expected that Chu Yun, as a man, might become angry and tear up the divorce agreement. All she kept in her bag was a copy. She is a heroine and an entrepreneur, and Chu Yun is just a useless person who can't support the wall. She is sure to defeat Chu Yun's psychological defense and complete the divorce agreement. What about the divorce compensation? Chu Yun frowned after reading the divorce agreement. Oh, it should be said that the division of property. You are so disgusting. Chen Ziyuling laughed back. What have you done for the Sui family? Do you still want to divide the property? Chu Yun ignored Chen Ziyuling's curse, and looked at Dong Yehua calmly. Mom, although I don't study much, but I also understand marriage law. Since it's an agreed divorce, then I must negotiate a mutually satisfactory condition. Dong Yehua had expected that this unambiguous waste would be a rogue. Suppressing his unhappiness, he nodded, you make a price. Wife. As soon as Dong Yehua's voice fell, Chu Yun shouted into the kitchen, can you come out? Everyone was stunned. Su Minjiu still walked out. She was like a princess who dressed up to the banquet last night. At this moment, the chef dressed her like a stunner, so glamorous. What's the matter? Su Minjiu asked lightly. Mom wants us to get a divorce. Chu Yun had no worries, adding fuel and jealousy. Also let me make a price, I think it disrespects you very much. Dong Yehua furrowed his brows deeply, feeling uneasy. Oh. Su Minjiu didn't change her face, her tone was still cold. Then you can make a satisfactory price. How can that work? Chu Yun said sharply. Love is priceless, how can it be measured by money? Are you worth mentioning love too? Chen Ziyuling answered in due course. Chu Yun, you have to divorce if you don't want to be married in this marriage. You'd better be interested. In order to destroy this marriage, the Sui family's coercion and temptation were used. Chu Yun didn't seem to struggle for too long, he sighed, and said, then I'll make a price. After a pause, Chu Yun looked affectionately at Su Minjiu, my wife is a fairy, with a graceful figure, outstanding temperament and a high degree of education. She is still a rising star in the entertainment industry. It is unfair to her if it is low. Let's do this. Chu Yun gritted his teeth, looking painfully bowed to the evil forces. 100 million. It can't be less. This is the last bottom line I can accept. Before he finished his words, Dong Yehua trembled and became angry. Do you want money and want to be crazy? Dong Yehua asked in a cold voice, as if a wild animal broke out in his body. 100 million? Even if the Sui family enterprise did not go bankrupt, Dong Yehua would not be able to easily give out 100 million in cash. This is a divorce by agreement. Chen Ziyuling sneered. It's not that you sell your wife unilaterally. Chu Yun glanced at Chen Ziyuling, pursing his lips and said, I'm talking about business with my mother-in-law, and outsiders don't interrupt. Chen Ziyuling only felt an evil fire hit the ground, and the internal organs seemed to be burnt. Before Chen Ziyuling had an attack, Chu Yun calmly looked at Dong Yehua. "Mom, I don't know if I should say something inappropriate." Su Xiao, who was hiding in the kitchen, was shocked. She was caught up in Chu Yun's routine last night. At this moment, facing the domineering mother in the Su family, what will this brother-in-law who has changed his temperament do? "Say what you have," Dong Yehua said in a cold voice. His eyes were cold and sharp. "If you can't sell your daughter, don't ask for it." The 9 words, concise and concise, make the living room fall into dead silence. Slash took the money to eliminate the disaster and kicked Chu Yun away. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com used Su Minjiu to make friends with the powerful, find a golden turtle son-in-law, and seek greater benefits. This is the intention of the Su family. Said that he Chu Yun sells his wife, and Dong Yehua is the one who really sells his daughter. Maybe she will have countless excuses for her daughter's happiness. After all, it is just to satisfy one's own selfish desires. Asshole thing. No matter how well trained Dong Yehua is, he is completely irritated by Chu Yun. She breathed fire into her eyes and said with a cold voice, "Get out of here." Chu Yun shrugged leisurely. Turning her head to look at Su Minjiu, who was Gujing Wubo, "My wife. Is breakfast ready? I'm so hungry." As if the whole thing had nothing to do with Su Minjiu, she looked indifferent from beginning to end, acting as a spectator. "No." She turned around and walked back to the kitchen without commenting on the matter. The calmness is incredible. The Su family's sentiment is so angry that they can't wait to strip Chu Yun alive. The phone ring from Chen Ziyuling's bag broke the suffocating depression. She connected in a rude manner. Before listening for a few seconds, her face was like pig liver, terrified and trembling all over. "What happened?" Dong Yehua frowned. "It's over." Chen Ziyuling's face was dull, and there was a deep fear in her eyes. Last night, Minjiu had dinner with the prince of the Han group, but was severely injured. He is still under observation at ICU. Chen Ziyuling swallowed her saliva and broke out in a cold sweat. "The Han family wants to pay for it with blood." Chapter 5. I carry it. Dong Yehua almost fainted. After the enterprise went bankrupt, Su Minjiu became the last straw for her to stand up. Unexpectedly, the house leaks in the rain, and the daughter offends the powerful Han family and cannot protect herself. The Su family is in chaos. Dong Yehua and Chen Ziyuling ran into the kitchen to ask questions. They believe that Han Jin was beaten into ICU, and it was definitely not Su Minjiu who did it himself. As long as the culprit is pushed out, there is still a glimmer of hope for the daughter. Su Zhenyi's, who has never spoken, glanced at Chu Yun, who was calm, and pursed his lips. "Come and have a few words." These Wang in-laws came to the balcony. Su Zhenyi's handed Chu Yun a cigarette, then pointed it straight on, and took a deep breath. "Minjiu has been very tired during the past 6 months. She has burdened too much for this family. I know that the Su family is not very friendly to you. Minjiu, the child, has always been emotionally weak. She may have done something that makes you uncomfortable, and said something that makes you unhappy. But after all," Su Zhenyi slowly said slowly, "she is your wife. I am very proud to marry such an excellent wife." Chu Yun smiled. "As a husband, you should be responsible," Su Zhenyi said meaningfully. "Right now, Minjiu is jailed and perilous. She needs you, whether you can help her through the storm or not. It shouldn't be gone like half a year ago." Chu Yun's face is a bit hot. Even half a year ago, he didn't know the predicament facing the Su family. But it's a fact that sitting on the sidelines and not sharing with Su Minjiu, he has no quibble. In addition, he had a good impression of Su Zhenyi's. He had been in Zhou Su's family for more than half a year, and this old man was the only Su family who did not say anything against him. Even Su Minjiu had shown Chu Yun's expression. "I understand. Chu Yun took out a few Hunghe brand cigarettes from his pocket, handed one to Su Zhenyi's with both hands, and smiled. "Dad, you smoke?" Su Zhenyi's elegant face squeezed a small smile, like some kind of ritual, which recognized this not outstanding son-in-law. Then he patted Chu Yun on the shoulder, pursing his lips and said, "Be careful of everything." Chu Yun nodded, and went back with Su Zhenyi's. In the living room, Su Minjiu didn't say a word no matter how hard Dong Yehua and Dong Yehua asked. The thief Su, who was standing on the side, glanced at Chu Yun, but did not dare to speak. "Who beat Han Jin?" As long as the sisters dare to speak, Dong Yehua will dare to tie the knot and hand over the culprit to the Han family, thereby reducing risks and losses. The Su sisters are still righteous, and they haven't betrayed Chu Yun. But Chu Yun blew himself up at the scene. "If you don't say it at the moment, the Su family will know sooner or later." "Mom, you don't need to ask." Chu Yun pinched out the cigarette and walked forward slowly. "I beat the people. I will carry the Han family's anger and revenge." As soon as he said this, the living room fell into a brief silence. Soon, Dong Yehua snorted coldly, "I don't know how to die or die." Disappeared for half a year, and when he came back, he caused a catastrophe. It also affected the entire Su family. It was a waste of failure. The young and frivolous Su Xiaoxiao was full of enthusiasm, and was short of breath by Chu Yun's words. "This wimpy brother-in-law is fine. Not seen for half a year, the courage is good. Just know who it is." Chen Ziyuling said impatiently. "Mrs. Han has already gone to Minjiu Company for someone, let's rush over and explain clearly." Dong Yehua did not call the shots without authorization. She knew that Chen Ziyuling had been in the entertainment industry for more than 10 years, and she still had some personal connections. With her coordination, she is always better than herself. Moreover, even when she was at its most brilliant career, she was no more than an ant in the eyes of the Han group. "Things started because of me." Su Minjiu, who was always taciturn, finally spoke. She was still expressionless, her eyes calm. "It has nothing to do with him. In a word, Chu Yun will be picked out." Dong Yehua quit. Chen Ziyuling was even more unhappy. She also pointed to Su Minjiu to revive her stunted career. "Minjiu, don't mess around." Chen Ziyuling was anxious. "The Han family wants to pay the blood debt. How do you carry it? Will the Su family be buried together?" Su Minjiu did not speak again. Chu Yun hit people for her. She is indifferent and indifferent, which does not mean that she is cold-blooded and ruthless. Now that Han Jiakaiu settles accounts, she will not hide behind anyone cowardly. Otherwise, the Su family was in a desperate situation, and she would not have the courage to shoulder the burden. "Chu Yun, are you still a man?" Seeing Su Minjiu not speaking, Chen Ziyuling glared at Chu Yun. "Are you really going to push your wife down the fire pit?" Chu Yun pursed his lips and said, "I said. I will carry it." Chen Ziyuling put down the big stone in her heart and urged, "Then go to the company and explain to Han's family." As soon as Chu Yun raised his leg, Su Minjiu's arm was pulled. Her eyes were cold, but there was a slight looseness in her beautiful face. "Leave Pearl. Never come back." Chu Yun was startled slightly. This should be the first time this woman has said that she cares about herself, right? Even, for the first time there was physical contact. A smile appeared on the corners of his lips, and he said every word, "You are my wife." After all, he followed Chen Ziyuling to leave Su's house. Su Minjiu did not stop, but followed. Is just between the eyebrows, with a slightly different color. Alongside entertainment, where Su Minjiu is located, went public 3 years ago, and it stumbled to have a market value of nearly 2 billion. Compared with the Korean group, it is not worth mentioning. In the high-rise conference room of Zongheng Entertainment, the air pressure is so low that it is suffocating. More than 20 people in the conference room were divided into 3 groups, the first being Mrs. Han and his party. Their arrogance is fierce and the source of the low air pressure. The other group is the vertical and horizontal leadership, including the insiders who attended the dinner last night. Everyone shivered. Yu reading www.yuuganshu.com's expression is tense. The third call is from the Pearl Police. This case was classified as a criminal, the purpose is to make it as big as possible. The Han family's anger can never be extinguished for 10 or 8 years. The majority of people in the conference room are standing, only Mrs. Han sitting alone. She has a strong aura, and her superiors have a significant sense of oppression. Holding a cup of tea in his hand, it just shook slowly. As far as the eyes could reach, no one looked at each other, and they lowered their heads, breathing heavily. Squeak! The door to the conference room was pushed open, and a man and 2 women walked in, instantly becoming targets of public criticism. As an insider, Chen Ziyuling wants to protect the moneymaker Su Minjiu. He walked to Mrs. Han for the first time. The exquisite makeup face was filled with flattering smiles. Mrs. Han, this incident is a big misunderstanding. How could it be possible for a weak woman in our family to be damn? Chen Ziyuling walked up to her, bending over to explain to Madame Han. Before she finished speaking, Madame Han even slapped her teacup and slapped Chen Ziyuling on her face. But the ability is too great, Chen Ziyuling actually stumbled, lying on the ground in an ugly manner. Am I here to hear your explanation? Mrs. Han stood up, a deterrent force spreading like a substance. She looked bad, and her eyes were cold and stern. I'm here to avenge my son. The temperature in the conference room dropped sharply, and everyone's hearts were beating like thunder. Chapter 6 Does it hurt? The needle drop in the silent meeting room can be heard. Mrs. Han's knife-like gaze passed over Chen Ziyuling who was lying on the ground, and settled on Su Minjiu's face calmly. This is a face that is amazing enough. Was so amazing that the big boss Xue Chaoqing advanced 100 million in cash and bought Su Minjiu's T-Nier contract with no acting experience. Are you the vixen? Madame Han stepped forward 2 steps aggressively. I think I'm pretty, so I feel confident. Without waiting for Su Minjiu's response, Madame Han has stepped closer. Do you know what you are in my eyes? Mrs. Han looked up and down Su Minjiu with her condescending gaze, and said sarcastically, an influential actor who makes a living by selling laughter. She is arrogant and domineering, like the female version of Han Jin, extremely arrogant. My son is interested in you, it is your ancestor's grave that smokes. Madame Han turned her words, her eyes sullen. Did you give your face? Dare to hurt my son? This is a unilateral trial of Mrs. Han. Her strength and the Han group behind her do not allow anyone to resist. Even speaking is guilty. Chen Ziyuling is a lesson from the past. Su Minjiu, who is on the cusp of the storm, is still plain. Last night she knew that this thing could not be good. But as long as she does a good job of mental construction, she can take it easy. And her quality and self-cultivation do not allow her to be full of foul language like Mrs. Han. After a moment of silence, Su Minjiu opened her red lips slightly, and said coldly, a mother must have a son. I have learned. As soon as I said this, the air pressure in the conference room dropped sharply. Everyone gasped, and they couldn't help themselves. These words were like pouring a bucket of gasoline on the blazing flames, instantly causing Mrs. Han to lose control. The teeth are sharp and the mouth is sharp. Madame Han burned like a fire, angering her head. Her face was livid, and she raised her hand and slapped Su Minjiu. I smashed your mouth. Snapped. She didn't get her wish with a slap, and she was firmly grasped. Chu Yun was the one who made the shot. He originally stood lazily behind him, like a fellow in the circle coming to entertain and exchange learning. Even the posters of the headworks on the wall are also appreciated one by one, which looks very leisurely. But at this moment, he stood beside Su Minjiu and prevented Mrs. Han's public violence. Others don't know who he is, but the insiders who participated in the dinner last night shivered, for fear that the tragedy would happen again. Asshole thing! Let go! Madame Han became angry and scolded Chu Yun. She doesn't care who Chu Yun is, she just wants to severely teach Su Minjiu who angered her. Smash her mouth, smash her beautiful and charming face. Chu Yun glanced at Madame Han blankly, then turned his head. S eyes fell on Su Minjiu's delicate face, and she pursed her lips and said, "Daughter-in-law, smoke her." Snapped. Without warning, without hesitation, Su Minjiu started. Maybe the strength is not great, but he slapped Mrs. Han's delicate makeup face with a solid slap. And left a few red fingerprints. The scene fell into chaos in an instant. The noise, horror, and flustered noise rang out. The bodyguard who followed Madame Han quickly rushed over, showing a fierce look. The high-level staff in the vertical and horizontal are also in cold sweat, and the heart misses the shot. Even Chen Ziyuling, who was supported by someone, nearly rolled her eyes and fell to the ground again. Is Su Minjiu crazy? What kind of figure is Mrs. Han? Can she fight? Chen Ziyuling has a complete mental breakdown. She knew that the Su family was on a dead end. There is no more room for maneuver. It's too late. Just when the scene was completely out of control, Chu Yun frowned slightly and shook his head. Then, for the first time in his life, he caught Su Minjiu's delicate and soft jade hand. Teach her how to beat people more powerfully. There was a crisp sound. Ms. Han, who was still dazed, was slapped again. Because of her strength, Mrs. Han staggered and almost fell. The noisy meeting room fell silent. Everyone is dumbfounded. Like the eve of the storm. Do you dare to hit me? In the severe pain, Madame Han's eyes were red. The corners of the mouth are more bleeding. 2 slaps in succession completely shattered Madame Han's supreme conceit and pride. She was emotionally broken, her eyes glared at Chu Yun and her husband with fire-breathing eyes. "I want you to die." Chu Yun turned a deaf ear, but turned his head and glanced at Su Minjiu. The action was very affectionate. She just slapped the palm of Mrs. Han's hand and asked softly, "Does it hurt?" Su Minjiu is very honest, "A little bit." This is the first beating in her 26 years of life. And hit someone who shouldn't be hit. After Chu Yun stopped Madame Han, she could have left her hands alone. But she still hit. Because she didn't want to be looked down upon by Chu Yun, who was despised by the Su family. Last night, he beat Han Jin for himself. Today, she backed down without reason. Chi Jun. Mrs. Han almost snarled frantically, "What do you do, the detective captain, do you eat? Are you going to wait for me to be killed before collecting the body?" Mrs. Han wants to kill Chu Yun. $2,000 won cut, frustrated bones and burnt ashes. But the last trace of reason told her that Chen Ziyuling is fine, and Su Minjiu is fine. But she must have a bottom line. The Han Group is a wealthy member of the Pearl City. Secretly, she can be lawless. But on the stage, she couldn't really beat people to death. That would have a very bad effect on the family. At this moment, even if she had her bodyguard beat her opponent, it would be hard to get rid of her hatred, and it would be hard to save her shattered face. She wants to use her power to destroy the other's family. She wants to use her contacts to make the Su family never live beyond life. She has this ability, and most people present firmly believe it. So everyone looked at Chu Yun and his wife, as if they were looking at 2 cold corpses. But Captain Chi, who was named by the furious Mrs. Han, had an unbelievable attitude and an ambiguous attitude. Is it really him? At first, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com, Chi Jun did not pay attention to Chu Yun standing behind the crowd. But when he shot and stopped Mrs. Han, he basically confirmed his judgment. Chi Jun took a deep breath and looked away, looking neither at Chu Yun nor Madame Han. After gritting his teeth, he said in a deep voice, "Close the team." As soon as he said this, the conference room fell into chaos again. Close the team? Didn't Captain Chi call in the Han family to arrest the prisoner? Han Jin was severely injured last night, which has caused great concern. At this moment, even Mrs. Han was beaten in public. How to calculate, this is also an escalation of the case, right? Instead of hitting crime hard, they closed the team? The twists and turns of Mrs. Han's life are not as much as this day. She couldn't figure out why Chi Jun closed the team. The bitter gaze swept over, and the cold voice asked, "Are you crazy? Waiting to be punished?" She was shaking with anger. "Take out the phone and call Chi Jun's direct leader." After a while, Chi Jun walked aside and answered the leader's questioning call. "Give me a reasonable explanation." An angry question came from the phone. Chi Jun rubbed his eyebrows and said bitterly, "Fang Ju. This person can't move." Chapter 7. It's easy to ask God to give it away. Nonsense. What can't an entertainment star do? Fang said unhappily. You kid, don't engage in individualism in this section. It's not as simple as you think. Chi Jun shook his head and said, I'm not talking about Su Minjiu. It's her husband. There was silence on the phone, and he said clearly, you should understand the general situation. We are handling the case impartially. We are not using power for personal gain. Chi Jun nodded, I know. Then tell me, why can't the husband of a star artist move? As a leader, Fang Ju did not speak too bluntly. In the entertainment industry, it is very common for a celebrity to marry a rich family. But it was the Han family who offended this time. Even if Su Minjiu's husband has a background, can he still make the Han group suffer? Chi Jun said concisely, because I can't afford it. Bullshit. Fang Ju angrily said. Did they hurt people? Did they reach the sentencing standard? Chi Jun said helplessly, Fang Ju. You also know my origin. To put it bluntly, I am a marginal figure, at most I can touch the threshold. But he is the core of the core. I am not afraid of your jokes, I am in the original unit. After 2 years, it's not even qualified to salute him. After hearing these words, Fang Ju, who was extremely dissatisfied, fell silent. The reason why he attaches importance to the airborne Qi army is because of his outstanding ability and his special status. The old leader explained that he should cultivate it well. That will be difficult. Fang Ju rubbed his eyebrows, obviously discouraged. According to you, not only can we not afford it, we don't even have this authority. It can be understood that way. Chi Jun nodded and added. I really want to take people down, it's not this that I am most concerned about. What is that? Fang Ju asked. It's easy to ask God to give it away, Chi Jun said, pursing his lips. Fang Ju's heart sank and ordered Chi Jun to close the team immediately. Hanging up, Chi Jun ignored Madame Han's mocking and abuse and ordered his subordinates to close the team. Madame Han was angry and scolded, Chi Jun, don't be shameless. Chi Jun frowned, not wanting to grow up. Lead his subordinates to walk out of the door. But they inevitably met with Chu Yun. He didn't say hello, nor did he dare to say hello. The confidentiality of the original unit was so high that even the bureau never asked too much. If asked, Chi Jun couldn't say anything. Chi Jun's eyes dodged, passing by. Chu Yun, who copied his pockets with both hands, coldly spit out a few words, useless things. Chi Jun's body trembled and his face was hot. But he didn't dare to say a word, bit the bullet and opened the door, and fled. Lock the door. As soon as Chi Jun left, Mrs. Han, who was dazzled by anger, looked terrifying, who dares to leave for half a step and break his leg for me? The bodyguard took the command, his burly body blocked the door, fierce and wicked. Mrs. Han walked into the lounge to make a phone call. Everyone in the meeting room was in danger and commotion. They knew that Mrs. Han, who was placed by Chi Jun, was going to be cruel. Chu Yun turned a blind eye, and instead took the opportunity to chat with the reluctant Su Minjiu. Are you thirsty? Su Minjiu shook her head. No matter how strong her heart is, she can hardly be humiliated at this moment. Completely offended the Han family, she couldn't cope with it. The Su family will also be implicated. She does not regret everything she has done, but she must bear the ensuing revenge. She doesn't ask for help all her life, but she knows the severity. Qi Jun inexplicably closes the team, and it seems that he will get back around, but in reality he will face even more brutal retaliation. She doesn't blame Chu Yun for being reckless and arrogant, but she knows this is a dead end and can't look back. Let's go. Su Minjiu's beautiful eyes flashed, and her red lips opened slightly and said, You don't owe me anything. Even if you owe it, it's paid off. Chu Yun smiled, little scolded me for being useless and unaccountable. The Su family looked down on me, thinking that I was eating soft food and dragging you down. Click. Chu Yun lit a cigarette and pursed his lips. If I go, the Su family still has to poke my spine. Do you really care? Su Minjiu glanced at Chu Yun inadvertently. Chu Yun exhaled a thick smoke, his eyes gloomy. Just last night, someone wanted to soak my wife. Just now, someone wanted to smoke my wife. I care, I care. Su Minjiu was silent. Mrs. Han, who finished the call, did not rush out. Actually, when she finished that call, she doesn't need her to come forward for the next thing. The police didn't care, she couldn't ask for it. Use your own means to deal with the matter, so that you can retaliate more happily. The meeting room was deadly silent. The low pressure was suffocating, and Chen Ziyuling was frightened. She regretted being the first bird. If I had known it would be like this, I shouldn't go to Su's house today. I really asked for trouble. While resenting Chu Yun in his heart, he was also very angry at Su Minjiu's actions. If this trash lets you hit you, just hit it. He patted his and could run away to play missing. Can you, Su Minjiu? Abandon the Su family and accompany him to the end of the world? On the first floor of the building where Zongheng Entertainment is located. After Qi Jun ordered to accept the team, he did not go back with the team. He was smoking a cigarette and waiting patiently in the car. Team Qi, what are we waiting for here? Qi Jun's confidant asked curiously in the passenger seat. This thing will definitely not be good. Qi Jun squinted and said with a puff of smoke. Mrs. Han will definitely retaliate. Confidant smiled bitterly, we didn't take action just now. Even if Mrs. Han finds someone to retaliate, it would be inconvenient for you to come forward, Team Qi. Qi Jun sighed, I'm afraid of killing people. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Confidant said at once, isn't it? No matter how domineering the Han family is, it won't be so unscrupulous, right? I am not worried about the Han family. Qi Jun frowned. My heart sank, and he cautiously said, Qi team, what is the origin of that buddy? You close the team without saying a word, and even the party has no objection. Is it possible that you have a more background than the Han family? Less inquiries. Qi Jun said solemnly. It's no good for you to know it. While talking, several arrogant cross-country vehicles stopped at the door. More than a dozen vigorous young men in straight suits jumped out of the car, their movements were agile, and their faces were cold. It's over. The confidant slapped his thigh, shocked. Mrs. Han is going to die. Qi Jun glanced at the young man in suit who rushed into the building, and recognized the origin of this group of people. The newly built bodyguard company in Pearl City has a solid hard power in a wild way. Most bodyguards have overseas professional mercenary experience. Less than a year after opening, it has become popular among the rich in the city. High prestige. Okay. Go back. Qi Jun pinched out the cigarette and stepped on the accelerator. Hey! His confidant was shocked. Team Qi, Aren't you afraid that this group of guys will be too dark and cause bad effects? They came very well. Chi Jun grinned, playing with the taste, at least he can beat it. Chapter 8 Make a Deal. Boom. The door to the meeting room was pushed open. More than a dozen arrogant and strong young men filed in. They are well trained and quickly control the scene as soon as they come in. 4 or 5 of them blocked Chu Yun's back path aggressively, and at first glance they were Lian Jiazi. Is a young man in his 30s. He has a strong physique and is about 185 in height. His hands are full of calluses and his expression is cold. After looking around, he strode into the lounge and asked Mrs. Han out. Boss, you have a bottom line? The Bankun youth asked calmly. The Han family is the major shareholder behind the bodyguard company, and Mrs. Han is also considered half the boss. Now he has been beaten and bullied. It was their negligence. If you don't find this one, how can you gain a foothold in the future? You figure it out. Madame Han said with a grim face and a cold tone. Just keep your breath and deal with the police. Understand? The young man nodded, turned, and walked towards Chu Yun. He raised his hand violently, and the young men in suits who had been scattered around the meeting room quickly double-teamed and surrounded Chu Yun. And Su Minjiu spent her face. The slab-inch youth looked cold and gave orders. What said was extremely cruel. Is going to spend the face of a beautiful female celebrity? This is more cruel than killing her. The suit bodyguard who was close to Su Minjiu did not hesitate. As soon as his voice fell, he came out like a tiger. In the dark conference room, a white light flickered. That is a tool with a painted face, a folding saber. The scene was exclaimed. Zongheng boss Xue Chaoqing reacted the most. If this is a cut, his 100 million yuan signing bonus will be completely wiped out. Chen Ziyuling was too scared to open her eyes. Most people also had weak legs and sweated profusely. The man in a suit holding a knife is approaching Su Minjiu. But the knife stopped abruptly at a position less than 5 centimeters away from the beauty. Accompanied by a crackle. Chu Yun's knuckle-hard palm cruelly squeezed the man's wrist in the suit. Then, with a twist, he broke his entire arm abruptly. Shows obvious fracture dislocation. Even people with no common sense can see that this buddy is not a simple fracture. Instead, the bones that connect the arms to the shoulders are completely torn apart, leaving only the flesh and the flesh. Heart-piercing screams suddenly sounded. But in less than 5 seconds, the youth went into shock on the spot. Is so cruel and devastating. In just a few seconds, it will cause lifelong disability, which makes people stand upside down. Go. The young man looked gloomy, but his eyes flashed with surprise. 7 or 8 young men in suits stepped forward, with the same high goals, and all rushed to Su Minjiu. The result was almost the same, and Chu Yun was blasted to pieces on the spot before the person approached. Chu Yun shot quickly and fiercely, like a thug licking blood. Plop! Within 3 minutes, the last player brought by the board-inch youth fell to the ground. He had 2 broken ribs in his left abdomen and a comminuted fracture of his knee in his right leg. This is a hugely disparity in strength. In the eyes of everyone, those arrogant youths didn't even have room to struggle. Chu Yun was put down straight and neatly after a face-to-face encounter. And the methods are vicious, and whenever you make a move, you will greet you to the dead spot. The young man with 8 years of professional employment experience was shocked. He knew very well that at least 80% of the people who were beaten by Chu Yun would be left with lifelong disabilities, and his career had basically come to an end. Who is he? Why is the shot so decisive? Faintly, the Bankun youth smelled death from Chu Yun. That is the deterrence that a person with blood on his hands may have. It's your turn. Chu Yun glanced calmly at the stubborn youth. The eldest brother usually chooses to play at the finale, and the young man is the leader, and the younger brother is killed. But he subconsciously took 2 steps backwards. A rich career has given him the ability to accurately judge the situation, with the hard power shown by Chu Yun. Adding up to 3 or even 5, he is definitely not a rival. He who crawled out of the dead pile can face death relatively calmly, but also has a deeper fear of death. He shook his head and took 2 steps back. This is an act of weakness and an act of giving up revenge. Although he did not ask for mercy, his actions have revealed his heart. Late. Chu Yun's steps are very steady, but every step seems to be stepping in the heart of Ban Kun youth. It's okay for a man to suffer a bit of grievance. Chu Yun approached step by step, his eyes indifferent. But if your own woman is bullied, it's absolutely impossible. Boom. Chu Yun's feet seemed to be fucked, slamming the Ban Kun youth's chest. Wow! The young man fell to the ground, blood spurting wildly. It seems to have been severely injured, limbs fall apart, chest tightness, shortness of breath, and head swelling. Stand up! Chu Yun's extremely cold voice resounded in his ears. It is a sentence without emotion, but it is full of irresistible majesty. The young man stood up, even though he was about to fall apart. But he knew that standing up would at least save his life. If you defy, you will endure more cruel revenge. My wife is an entertainment star. Do you know what it means to spend her face? Click. Chu Yun lit a cigarette, then picked up the folding saber from the ground, played with it a few times, and handed it to Ban Kun youth. This move made everyone incredible. What did he think about handing the murder weapon to Ban Kun youth? The latter gave Chu Yun a struggling look, his face was full of begging, "Dude, can you give me a way to survive?" One hand. Chu Yun's thin lips opened slightly, like a demon. The young man, trembling all over, took the folding saber, but he couldn't move. He was about to ruin Su Minjiahu's career and life. Now, Chu Yun wants him to have a hand for revenge. The air is still at this moment. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. After the light swept over, Chu Yun saw Su Minjiahu's face that was not calmly impacted by the scene. S heart moved slightly, and said indifferently, "Make a deal." Okay. The Ban Kun youth agreed without hesitation. As long as he can get out of his body, he is willing to do anything. It took your boss's face. Chu Yun glanced at the startled Madame Han. I forgive you. It is good. Without any hesitation, the Banach youth held the folding saber and walked towards Madame Han. Asshole thing, what are you going to do? Mrs. Han turned blue with fright. Appearance is the second life of a woman, and being disfigured is no less than humane destruction. Sorry boss. Ban Kun youth walked, the folded saber approached Madame Han's face. I have no choice. He has a choice. He chose to protect himself and betrayed Mrs. Han. He started a company to make money and to get ahead. If a hand is abandoned today, he will lose its value. The Han family would also be angry because of his incompetence. The folding saber pierced Mrs. Han's well-maintained face. As long as the young man's wrist shakes, it will leave a scar like a centipede. Chapter 9. Are you still a man? Don't. Madame Han was scared with tears and snot splashing, stiff as wood. She felt the coldness of the blade, which was more desperate than death. Sorry. The Ban Kun youth cast his eyes and said calmly. People don't die for themselves. He knew that Mrs. Han's appearance was ruined, and the Han family must chase him to the ends of the world. But compared to the mysterious Chu Yun, he would rather offend the Han family. Forget it. Su Minjiahu walked over. In the oppressive conference room, she was like an angel symbolizing the truth, goodness, and beauty, saving all beings. Even the cold and dull voice is like a natural sound. At this moment, no one dared to stop Chu Yun, who was crazy like a beast, except her. When Su Minjiahu spoke, everyone's tight nerves suddenly relaxed. Even the bored-inch youth looked at Chu Yun, who was expressionless. What are you looking at? Chu Yun frowned. Are you deaf? My wife says forget it. The young man breathed out a suffocating breath and hurriedly released the folding saber. Chu Yun squeezed out the cigarette, and walked towards the out-of-spirit Madame Han. A smile was squeezed out on the cruel face, and he lowered his voice and said, "Mrs. Han. Next time I will pick a month and a dark wind and a high night. You are embarrassed, and I feel uncomfortable." Madame Han's face was pale, her body was shaking, but she couldn't say a word. Snapped. Chu Yun has no gentlemanly demeanor, and he slapped his hand up. "Talking to you," Chu Yun said irritably. "Can you respect me?" Mrs. Han was awakened immediately. She covered her red and swollen face and stumbled out of the meeting room. As soon as Mrs. Han left, this thrilling battle came to an end. The group of insiders quickly fled the scene, and the high-level personnel of Zongheng also walked 7 or 8. The remaining few people looked at Chu Yun cautiously, not daring to say anything. "You got into a big disaster." Chen Ziyuling, who gradually woke up, rushed to the sky. "Even Mrs. Han, you dare to fight, don't pull our Sua family back when you look for death." Chu Yun averted his cold color, and said aggrieved, "Auntie, I will vent your anger under pressure. If you don't thank me, then forget it. Why do you blame me instead?" Chen Ziyuling opened her mouth to speak, but Chu Yun walked towards Su Minjiu slowly, and said with concern, "I didn't hurt you just now, right?" Su Minjiu shook her head, her mood a little confused. If beating Han Jin last night was just dessert, then this would be a big meal. "That's good." Chu Yun nodded. "It hurts your stomach not to eat breakfast. I will eat with you." A group of people leave Aspect Entertainment. Chen Ziyuling, who was driving, was still chattering endlessly, telling Chu Yun that she impulsively caused trouble, regardless of the consequences. Su Minjiu, who was sitting in the co-driver, said nothing, thoughtfully. "What are you doing when you return to Mingzhu? You killed Minjiu last night, and today you killed me and the Sua family. What are you going to do?" Chen Ziyuling said in annoyance. "If Mrs. Han is offended like that, will the Han family give up? There is one in the Sua family, who can run away." "Auntie." Chu Yun narrowed his expression, pursing his lips. "I thought you would be a little jealous of me after I just revealed my skills. Why, don't you even want to fight me?" Chen Ziyuling scolded. His heartbeat speeds up unstoppably. She was really afraid of Chu Yun in the meeting room, she was like a devil. But for a long time, Chu Yun's position in her heart was a waste, a soft man. Once the established impression is formed, it cannot be changed overnight. Of course not. Chu Yun showed a harmless smile on his face. "Even if I don't care about your face, I have to take into account Minjiu's feelings." Chen Ziyuling is a little emboldened. Hearing what he meant, "If you don't consider Minjiu's feelings, you'll be beaten if you want to beat it." With a muffled snort, Chen Ziyuling changed the subject and said, "Why did Captain Qi accept the team just now? Are you familiar with him?" "Unfamiliar." Chu Yun shook his head. "But I've seen it a few times." "Then why would he rather offend Mrs. Han than restrain others?" Ding ding ding. Chen Ziyuling was asking curiously. Su Minjiu's cell phone rang. Connected, she listened calmly for a moment, and said lightly, "Okay, I'll go through the formalities tomorrow." After speaking, hang up the phone. What happened again? Chen Ziyuling at this moment is like a bird with a bow, shocked. Su Minjiu calmly said, "The company wants to terminate the contract with me." "What?" Chen Ziyuling was shocked, but soon calmed down, and said in pain. "It seems that Xue Chaoqing is also afraid of being implicated. After all, the Han Group has a big business and no one dares to provoke it, alas. It doesn't matter if the contract is cancelled." Chu Yun was extremely machismo. Which old man wants his wife to show up and be regarded as a dream goddess, with millions of rivals? Su Minjiu did not speak, but Chen Ziyuling asked, "What about the signing bonus?" They unilaterally terminate the contract and don't take responsibility. Party A has the right to terminate the contract and ask for the signing money. Su Minjiao pursed her lips. Xue Chaoqing gave a discount for only 80 million yuan. She spoke calmly, but there was clearly a look of exhaustion on her beautiful face. In order to carry the Su family, she has paid too much in the past 6 months. But in the end, it still failed. 80 million. Chen Ziyuling said desperately. The signing money is used to pay off the debt. Where did the Su family collect 80 million? I will think of a way. Su Minjiao opened her red lips slightly. No, before Chen Ziyuling could say anything, she frowned. I want to be quiet. Chen Ziyuling was taken aback and closed her mouth. At this moment, Chu Yun's cell phone rang untimely. He connected, oh, and asked Chen Ziyuling to pull over and stop. What's wrong with you? Chen Ziyuling said impatiently. Buddy asked me to drink. Chu Yun said with emotion. They know I'm back to Pearl, they have to book a venue to catch the wind, and they can't push it off. Chen Ziyuling almost scolded her mother. What kind of environment is this, and you want to go out fooling around? Is really a waste who can't support the wall. If you get into trouble, pat your and go to spend time and drink? Disregarding his wife and disregarding Su's family? Su Minjiao ignored this and waited until Chu Yun got out of the car. Chen Ziyuling snorted coldly, Minjiao, it's not my aunt who instigated the separation. Look at this bastard, is he still a man? Su Minjiao glanced at the rear-view mirror. On the side of the busy road, Chu Yun, who was dressed in an ordinary appearance, was blocking the car. It was during the rush hour, and it was not easy to get a car. It's a man. Su Minjiao muttered to herself. The complex colors flashed across the beautiful eyes. Chu Yun took a taxi and went straight to Aspect Entertainment. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com went upstairs from the back door, and then walked into the depressed president's office. Inside the house, the vertical and horizontal boss Xue Chaoqing is calling to apologize. Seeing someone rushing in without knocking on the door, I wanted to take the opportunity to get angry. I looked up and saw Chu Yun. When he reached his throat, the anger swallowed again. Do you believe it or not, I killed you? Chu Yun sat down with a cold expression in his eyes. Was a little anxious inside. What happened to people these years? Chen Ziyuling scolded herself for trash when she went out, and so did this buddy. She turned around and fired Su Minjiao. Isn't he fierce enough? No deterrence at all? Xue Chaoqing has been in the entertainment industry for more than 20 years, and he has never been so threatened. He panicked all at once. Call the police if you touch the phone. No, it's the security guard. Calling the police is useless, Mrs. Han has tried it. If you have something to say. Xue Chaoqing swallowed. It's almost 50, and he feels embarrassed to be so scared by a young man. Hearing this, Chu Yun's attitude turned sharply. He took out the cigarette in his pocket and handed it to Xue Chaoqing very politely, Mr. Xue. You can reconsider the termination of the contract. Maybe you don't know yet, but our Su family pointed out. Let Minjiao make money to support her family. You are going to fire her, and everyone will have to drink northwest wind. Xue Chaoqing was dumbfounded. It is the first time he has seen how to eat soft rice so confidently and well-intentioned. Are you still a man? Chapter 10 Bullying Honest People. Xue Chaoqing took the cigarette cautiously and was thinking. Snapped. Chu Yun stretched his head and bowed his waist, holding the ignition with one hand and protecting the flame with the other. His face was full of pleasing colors. Mr. Xue, you are the president of a listed company. How can you have a general knowledge of a little woman? Xue Chaoqing bit his scalp and lit a cigarette, but was choked by the spicy smoke. After a dry cough, he frowned and said, Mr. Chu, I don't have an opinion on Miss Su. After a pause, he gave Chu Yun a meaningful look. I am light-hearted and dare not confront the Han Group. Let alone let the company wander through the muddy waters. Chu Yun put away the lighter and sat back with an attitude. I can understand Shui always wanted to pick himself out. Chu Yun said unhurriedly. But since you unilaterally terminated the contract, is it too much to claim the signing money? Shui Chaoqing had expected Chu Yun to come for the signing money. He was also afraid that the Sui family's reaction would be too fierce, so he made a 20% discount. Signing a contract for half a year is free of 20 million. Shui Chaoqing admits that he is not a profiteer. When the agreement was signed at the beginning, our company had the right to terminate the contract. This has legal effect. Mr. Chu, we cannot withstand the toss of our small family and small business. Please don't embarrass me. Shui Chaoqing has a humble attitude and a very low posture. He didn't dare to even think about it. Mrs. Han's tragic experience, he can vividly remember. Click. Chu Yun lighted a cigarette for himself, took 2 sips and said, Mr. Shui, I will also tell you the truth. You can terminate the contract, but the signing fee is definitely not good. Mr. Shui should be clear about the circumstances of the Sui family. Don't say 80 million. Even 8 million won't come out. I talked to Miss Su about this issue. Shui Chaoqing kept retreating. The signing bonus can be paid back in 3 years, and I don't charge a penny in interest. Chu Yun sullen his face, very unhappy. According to Mr. Shui, we can't travel abroad in the past 3 years, can't eat, drink, and have fun. Even if you buy a bag or a sports car, you have to look at your face. Shui Chaoqing's heart collapsed. Isn't you gangster logic? Isn't it just right to pay off debts? The economic environment is bad, what happened to the quality of life a little lower? I owe a debt and still want to eat, drink, and buy a car? Your soft rice is really out of the realm of kings. Suffocated back to suffocated, Shui Chaoqing did not dare to turn his face. He was not sure about Chu Yun's whole cards. This kid even dared to play Madame Han. Either he had confidence or he was a desperate thug. No matter who it was, Shui Chaoqing didn't dare to attack face to face. Mr. Chu, you are not kind enough to say that. Shui Chaoqing swallowed a bitter smoke. The company spent 100 million yuan to sign Miss Su. It's only half a year, so we can't afford to lose everything, right? Investment is inherently risky. If all investors make money, how can there be poor people in this world? Chu Yun said bitterly. Mr. Shui, if you really can't pass the hurdle in your heart, you might as well think like this. You didn't terminate the contract with my wife and continued to pour money and resources on her. As a result, all the projects you worked on were lost, and none of them made money. Chu Yun took out the cigarette and handed it to Shui Chaoqing the second one. Will it be easier to think about it this way? Even a little bit happy? Fortunately, I got out early and didn't sink deeper. Shui Chaoqing was completely stunned. Isn't this bullying the honest person? According to your logic, what is Lao Tzu doing while he is still alive? Just swallow 2 caddies of sleeping pills to make yourself stale. Save a lot of messy things in the future. How about this? Seeing Shui Chaoqing not picking up cigarettes, he was very negative. Chu Yun slowly said, I will give you 2 plans. First, you will not lose money when you terminate the contract. Second, continue to work with my wife. If you really feel uncomfortable, buy 1 get 1 free. I will join your company voluntarily for Zongheng Entertainment expands its territory. Shui Chaoqing was dumbfounded, and interrupted Chu Yun hurriedly, wait a minute, you want to come to work at Aspect Entertainment? Chu Yun shrugged and said, what's the problem? I have a deep knowledge of black studies, a very high EQ, a proficient in 8 languages, and a talented commander. Are you not happy to be in your small company? I would love your mother. The reason why I terminated the contract with your wife is because you provokes Mrs. Han, making the entertainment industry not human inside and outside. It's better now. Not only is the contract unsuccessful, but you, the culprit, have to come to work in Zongheng? Xue Chaoqing couldn't bear it, and with a muffled bang, he shot the crime. Chu Yun, don't deceive people too much. Sit down. Chu Yun stared at Xue Chaoqing, who was about to collapse. Believe it or not, I smoke you. Xue Chaoqing sat down as if struck by lightning. I won't tease you anymore. Chu Yun took out a box of special cigarettes without a trademark from his pocket, and threw one to Xue Chaoqing in an unpredictable posture. Xue Chaoqing, if you have a little brain, you should know that I am not an ordinary person. Xue Chaoqing heard the words and calmed down slowly. He can be like a dog in the entertainment industry, of course he has a brain. This is also the reason why he has been enduring his disagreement with Chu Yun. Could it be that Mr. Chu don't guess, don't ask? Chu Yunman said casually. In short, with me here, the Han family dare not do anything to you. You can praise my wife with peace of mind. Xue Chaoqing's heart is up and down. He was completely uncertain about Chu Yun's details, and he didn't dare to easily agree. Do you have Qi Jun's phone number? Chu Yun asked casually. Xue Chaoqing nodded. Call him. Chu Yun pursed his lips. Ask him who I am. Offend me, what's the end? Chu Yun didn't say anything. He would also ask the Qi team privately. Is even more relaxed now. Quickly got through to Qi Jun's phone, Xue Chaoqing asked a few words very tactfully. Listen to him. Put your heart in your stomach, and he will cover you. Hanging up, Xue Chaoqing wiped the sweat from his head. Take the initiative to pick up the lighter and light the cigarette to Chu Yun. Mr. Chu, Ms. Su's contract remains the same. I will look back and see if there is any suitable position for you. The recent economic downturn has been layoffs. It's easy to say. Chu Yun asked after lighting up his cigarette. Mr. Xue, I'm not familiar with the entertainment industry. Why did you pay 100 million yuan to sign my wife? She has a poor tone. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com is not like those female stars who can scratch their heads and pose. The main reason is that they are older. Xue Chaoqing twitched the corners of his mouth. Is there anyone who hides his wife like this? It seems that in the eyes of this elder brother, Su Minjiu doesn't have much weight. I guess it's just one of the many confidants, right? Ms. Su is not from a major, but she is extremely talented in acting. Moreover, she has only made her debut for half a year and has achieved small achievements. I believe there is a lot to do in the future. Chu Yun nodded and stood up and said, Then you are busy, I have something to deal with. After taking Qi Jun's reassurance pill, Xue Chaoqing should not turn back in the short term. The Su's family is not going to be furious. Ding ding. Just got into a taxi, a text message came from the phone. Marshall, are you on a mission? As soon as he and Xue Chaoqing exchanged phone calls, Qi Jun found them. No. I retired. Upon receiving this text message, Qi Jun's face was sallow. Retired? Didn't you pitch Xue Chaoqing? But he didn't dare to betray Chu Yun. Retired, at best it can't cover Xue Chaoqing. But it was easy to clean up his army. And even if you retire to that height in the original unit, it will not be defeated by the Han family.